Hi everybody, Craig Wessels here from Yank on the Footy, and welcome to episode 384. I'm going to give you my tips for round 4 for the 2025 fixture, and I'm out for a walk. It's a rather chilly day here in Ohio. We had a couple days up over 20 degrees Celsius, and Mother Nature was telling us that spring is officially here, and then she decided to punch us right in the mouth, and we're back down to 3 degrees Celsius today. So it's a little chilly, but at least we got some sunshine. I'm out at a local birding trail right behind me here where people go launch their kayaks and that sort of thing out into Sandusky Bay and into ultimately Lake Erie. But we're here to talk about the 8 games for this round. And good round of footy last week. Of course, I'm not terribly happy, as you may understand why. But let's go ahead and get into those games. And we first off have Collingwood hosting Carlton. And am I the only one that's kind of enjoying seeing Carlton's futility? I know I talked about it in the little short review episode I did earlier in the weekend where, you know, hey, Geelong, we can lay eggs too. But I have to tell you, I did enjoy the piece that my friend Cindy from AFL from LA posted up on her Instagram page, and I had her on the podcast a while back, and if you're not following her on social media, you should, because she's not part of the GWS social media group, but I'll tell you what, for an outsider looking in, she does a damn good job of just poking the bear right where the bear needs to be poked. And she did get into the shortage of pitchforks at Bunnings, which I was shocked to hear about because they were purchased, all of them were purchased by Carlton supporters. So Cindy, you know, I am so appreciative of your technical skills and everything that you do with that, and we think alike on those kinds of things, and I appreciate your sense of humor, and I don't think Carlton supporters do, but you know what, that means you're doing a good job with it. So I guess if you could find, you know, whether or not the young man who played Carlton on, wasn't there a Carlton character on Fresh Prince from Bel-Air? Maybe you could find his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and if they drop this game against Collingwood, maybe you could record from there this next time. So that being said, you know, Magpies are playing pretty decent football. And again, I have to, first and foremost, I have to say I had Carlton in the 8 this year, I believe. I'm pretty sure I did. And I did not have Collingwood in the 8. But that being said, I'm going with Collingwood to win this one because Carlton, you've been terrible this year, okay? Is Harry Mackay going to be back? Will it make a difference if he is back? I don't know if he will, if it will or not. I've got several friends who are Carlton supporters who are, I think they're convinced this could be the final rodeo for Michael Voss, and the futility, the wasting, if you will, of the amount of talent that this club has. So I don't know. But again, I'm going with Collingwood to win this one by 10 points. And then we head down to GMBHA Stadium for the Melbourne Demons, heading down there. And if you think Carlton's playing terrible football right now, the Melbourne Demons are telling us, hey, hold our beer, because we can play even worse, which is exactly what they're doing right now. And they're sitting, what, 17th on the ladder with a percentage of 62.7. I mean, geez, I'm not even 62.7 years old yet. I'm getting there, but I'm not quite there yet. Okay, Cats have scuffled. They lost, you know, back-to-back games. I got to tip my cap again to the Saints and to the Lions. They're back home. You know, I gotta ask. You know, is the club going to be able to find a way to consistently get the ball to Jeremy Cameron? You know, Melbourne struggles to score. You know, outside of, you know, Jacob Van Ruin on occasion. Are they going to? I think they get Kazi Pickett back this week. So, part of me is thinking that there's a possibility that, you know, that the D's could be very competitive in this game. But I'm going to go with the Cats to win it. We'll see if Tom Stewart's back. I think Shannon Neal's going to be out again. But I question whether or not keeping Paddy Dangerfield in the forward structure is maybe hamstringing the abilities. I hate to use that. Let me rephrase that. Is limiting the abilities. I don't want to bring up the term hamstring for a footy player. Pretend I didn't say that. Limiting the output of Tyson Stengel and Brad Close. And I know Tyson Stengel's kicked 5 goals so far this year, and Brad Close has 3, but they've been relatively quiet this year. And Brisbane basically shut down Jeremy Cameron this past week. So again, I cannot do more than tip my cap. But I've got the Cats winning this one by 20 this week at home. It might be a little bit less if Kazi Pickett is back. Maybe we drop it down to 15, but I do think the Cats are going to win this one. If Tom Stewart's back, that certainly helps. And I guess I have to ask, everybody's pissing and moaning about the Cats naming Stewart into the side. And if they think there's a chance that he's going to be able to play, then I say, go ahead and name him. Put him on the side. List him as somebody who's possibly going to be playing. That could certainly be, he may end up playing. Would you be more pissed off if you listed him as an emergency, and then at the last minute, an hour before first bounce, Chris Scott says, oh, no, he's healthy, he's going to play? Pick your poison. You're only allowed to be pissed off. Well, I guess you can't be pissed off at either one of those. But I think if Stewart was healthy enough to play, he would have played. Was he close? Probably. But again, they had to travel the day before. I'm not faulting him on that. If the other clubs in the comp don't like it, then you know what? Quit dealing with all of the other rules that they change and change that rule then. Change that rule. If you don't want them to do that sort of thing and manipulate, who's in the starting 23 and who's listed as emergencies, that sort of thing. If you don't like it, change the rule. Okay? Go ahead and do that. If you don't like what's going on, just go ahead and change the rule. So if that's not what you like. Now, we're heading up to the Gold Coast. And Gold Coast have started out the year 2-0. And both those games have been won on the road. And let's be honest here, ladies and gentlemen. Put your hand up if you thought Gold Coast was going to win their first 2 games on the road this year. I didn't think so. I thought they were going to be close to playing finals this year. But I think at this point in time right now, if they just hold serve at home and they win everything at home, this club may very well be playing finals this year. And they may not just be settling for playing finals, because I saw somebody say recently, and I'm not exactly sure who it was. It might have been Kane Corns. And I wish I did know for sure who it was, that said that Gold Coast could win the whole damn thing this year. And wouldn't that be a story? To go from never having played finals to channeling their inner Lou Brown from the movie Major League and just go out and win the whole goddamn thing. As they said to the Cleveland Indians back then, I just had a very large bird fly over my head there, if you saw that there, if you're on video. But their first test against the Adelaide Crows, and the Crows are playing phenomenal footy this year. No Josh Rochelli this week due to the rib injury. They've outscored their opponents by 145 points so far this year. I mean, the Crows, they're absolutely cruising. If this game was in Adelaide, I would tip, well, who knows? The Suns have gone 2-0 on the road this year. Maybe I would have to tip Gold Coast on the road. But since it is at People's First Bank Stadium, I think it's People's First Bank, right? Yeah, People's First Bank Stadium. I am going to go with Gold Coast. Do we call this an upset at this point? And I think we could argue, you look at the classic old-fashioned VFL games, Collingwood, Carlton, Geelong, and Melbourne, and you would think that that one of those would be the quote-unquote game of the week. But I got to tell you, I think this one, Gold Coast and Adelaide, and I haven't looked at the time yet. I think this one's actually, this is a 10:20 p.m. start for me on Friday nights. I am very much looking forward to watching this one before I hit the bed on Friday evening this week. I'm going with Gold Coast to win this one by 8, and I just think that this is going to be a phenomenal game. And I said last week that was the Adelaide and North Melbourne game a grand final preview for 2027. Who knows? Maybe this one is too. This one may very well be too, because I just think they're getting to that point. And, as much as I love to sledge on Dimma when he was down at Richmond, can't fault the man's success there. And I think that they just might have something going on in Gold Coast. And if you're a Sun supporter, and hopefully there are more and more of you each and every day, enjoy the ride, because I think this is going to be a hell of a lot of fun this year. Same with Adelaide. I think this is going to be a heck of a lot of fun for that club as well. And then we head back to the MCG for Brisbane facing off against Richmond. Richmond got that big win in week 1 against Carlton. And, they've been like a a cup of tea in an old Victorian telenovela. They've been taking their lumps, 2 lumps and milk. I don't know what to say on this one. Richmond's got to continue just getting games in people. Will they be competitive? Maybe, but Brisbane still is the best club in the comp until they've been defeated. So I am going to go with Brisbane. I think I said Richmond again, but I'm going to go with Brisbane to win this one by about 6 goals. It might be more than that, but they're on the road, so I'm going to temper my expectations a little bit. But sounds like Tom Duday is going to be back in the VFL this week, and that just makes this club stronger defensively. Will he be able to find his way into the lineup? I mean, this is a really, really good player when he was down in Adelaide, and he's not seen the ground in a couple of years, but he's coming off of 3 knee reconstructions. So, and then we head to the Marvel Stadium for North Melbourne hosting off against the Sydney Swans. North, how are they going to bounce back after the game against the Crows? I mean, they were somewhat competitive. They got beat by about 30 points, 35 points, something along those lines. The Swans have dropped a couple of games in a row. I'm just not sold on the Swans. I'm really not. They did fight back against Fremantle, and played well there. But I just think that I'm not convinced that this side has got enough scoring potential right now. When they get healthy, then maybe I'll change my tune on that. But right now, I think North Melbourne puts another feather in their cap this week, and it's going to be a swan feather this week, okay? I think they're going to help Luke Parker get a win against his old side. I think he's going to get a lot of hugs and handshakes and that sort of thing. And then somebody, let's be honest, as they should, is going to try to knock him on his ass. That's exactly what they should do, okay? Because Luke Parker would do it to them. And he probably will. So, Isaac Heaney, anybody running around that midfield in that club, you better have your head on a swivel, because Luke Parker is going to try his best to legally decleat you. But I think I can safely say he will not mock you after he does it. Okay? He won't mock you after he does it. I think he's got that out of his system. So again, I'm going with North Melbourne to win this one by 11 points. Do we call it an upset if it's a home game? Maybe. I'm not. Okay? And then we've got GWS hosting West Coast. Well, let's just put it out there. I'm going with GWS to win this one by 45 points, probably more. Gold Coast is not Gold Coast, West Coast. Did I say Gold Coast initially? The West Coast Eagles. West Coast is in disarray right now. We thought they were improving, and I think, bottom line, they probably are improving. But now the news is coming out that arguably their 2 best players have their eye on coming back to Victoria. Whether Harley Reid wants to or not, I don't know. Whether Oscar Allen actually wants to or not, I don't know. But one has to think that this could be a bit of a distraction. And I did see that there were calls for Oscar Allen to give up his captaincy. Does the fact that you meet with the senior coach of another squad, he flew cross country to meet with him, to discuss the possibility of you maybe coming to play for their club next year or in subsequent years, does that warrant giving up your captaincy? I don't know. But if I'm a member of this club, I have to wonder where the focus is. And this is one thing that is interesting about and I'm not saying that the NFL is a superior league by any stretch of the imagination, but they've got a different set of rules. They have tampering rules that do not allow this sort of thing to occur. But then also their free agency time period and the draft period is much more spread out than what the AFL has, which is really condensed into a relatively short period of time, which, it can be a bit of a frenzy. And of course, even at the end, the frenzy tends to happen in those last 45 minutes or an hour as deals are getting worked out, like the Bailey Smith deal, if I'm not mistaken, came very close to the end of the trade period with the Bulldogs this year. So, if you're an Eagles supporter, you've got some really good young talent there. But and again, this is where I think that you look back at people who were talking about, would the Eagles have been better served by trading that top pick and being able to add in 2 or 3 or 4 top players from WA who wanted to be in Perth And I'm not saying that Harley Reid doesn't want to be in Perth, but there seems to continually be that draw towards home for so many players, or fishing if you're getting guys to go to Geelong. I wonder if they were able to get into the DeLorean with Doc Brown and go back to draft night a couple of years ago, would they have dealt that top pick to a Victorian side and just absolutely cleaned up all of their draft capital and accelerated their rebuild even more? Would having 3 or 4 of the top players coming out of WA be a better use of their draft capital in terms of putting this club back where it should be in terms of being one of the top clubs in the game than having Harley Reid there? And who knows? And again, I'm not saying Harley Reid wants to leave at all. Harley Reid may very well want to spend his entire career with the West Coast Eagles. And I kind of hope that he does, quite frankly. I think that he is, is he a generational talent? He's a hell of a good player, okay? Is Jason Hoard-Francis a generational player? He's a fine player. But, I wonder, it's one of those what-if things. What if they had made a deal with, Club A or Club B and Harley Reid was playing on a Victorian side? Anybody go back and look at the subsequent drafts in terms of who the Eagles might have been able to pick up instead of Harley Reid? Because you figure they would be able to extract at least 2 first-round picks, maybe a couple seconds out of the deal as well. I don't know. Maybe that has that club going even further forward than it is right now. But again, GWS, this side's way too good for West Coast right now. So I'm going with GWS to win this one by about 8 goals. As I said, about 45 points. I guess that's technically 7.5 goals. 7.5. Not good at math. And then we got Port Adelaide hosting St Kilda. And, Port Adelaide, I think, is going to continue to be an enigma. We never know what we're going to get from this club. Although we know we're getting a new senior coach next year. Okay, we know that for sure. Kenny Hinckley is, within about 3 months, he will no longer be buying green bananas in Adelaide. Does he end up going somewhere else? Is Kenny Hinckley the senior coach for the Tasmania Devils here in the next couple of years? Does he take a couple of years off, start doing press, that sort of thing? I've not had a chance to listen to Alan Simpson yet, but from what I hear, Alan Simpson's doing a phenomenal job in the media and being very good at describing tactical aspects of the game. I need to find him online so I can listen to him, because those are the kinds of people that I need to listen to, so I have an even deeper understanding of the structure of the game, because again, I've only seen it through a television screen, okay? I've not seen it holistically across the entire ground. It's one of the reasons why I absolutely love when they do occasionally show the camera angle from behind the goalpost, so I can start to see how things set up around the ground. But again, both of them have had big losses. Saints bounced back, got their wins the last couple of weeks. They're playing really, really well, and they're not really playing Ross Lyon footy unless Ross Lyon footy has been redefined, and they're playing like, a few years ago. I remember, when it was still, Tom Hawkins and Radaglia was there, and Gary Rowan was still and Gary Ablett was still with the Cats. They were referring to that group of players with the Cats as kind of being the wolf pack, if you will, kind of like the German submarines during World War II, attacking en masse. The Saints seem to be doing that all over the ground. They just have pressure everywhere. They're playing hard. They're playing fast. Something Ross Lyon clubs generally don't do. They tend to play slow. They play hard, but they've tended to play slow. They've tended to play defensively. And I just got to tell you, I've been so impressed. Right now they're 3rd in disposals. They're 3rd in points scored per game. They're 5th in tackles. They're 5th in clearances. They're at the top in a lot of statistics. And I didn't put them in the top 8 this year. Okay, there's only so many spots in the 8, and I just didn't think they were going to be there yet, because it was, the whole in Ross we trust. I was not there quite yet, but I'm getting more and more convinced about it. And I'll tell you what, other than North Melbourne, other than Gold Coast, needing to make finals, I can't think of another club that I would be thrilled to see playing finals this year. I really can't. I think the Saints, for those of you that know, I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. I've been a Cleveland Browns fan for well over a half century now. And the Browns were very good back in the 1940s and into the 1950s and even into the early 60s. They were a very solid team in the late 70s into the mid 80s. But by 1995, they were gone. And since they came back into the league in 1999, they've been terrible. They've been to the playoffs, I think, 3 times in 26 years. They've been god awful. If people, would use the metaphor of, somebody, shooting themselves in the foot, these guys have no more damn toes. They ran out of toes. They had to have toe transplants, and they shot all of those off as well. So, Saints supporters, I understand your futility with that one premiership. I understand it. I respect it. I think your club is improving. Are they ready? Are they ready to be a grand final contender this year? I don't think quite yet. But hey, when you get Max King back, and if he comes back healthy, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, just think about that. You've been playing, you got blitzed the first week, but you've been playing pretty solid footy the last couple weeks and won a couple big games. All of that without him. So when he comes back, I don't know. It could be an absolutely awesome time. Okay. And then we get to the last game of the weekend, Fremantle and the Western Bulldogs. And the Bulldogs, they're playing right now with smoke and mirrors. I wonder, when the sky is going to fall on this club, because they've got so many injuries, but then they've got Sam Darcy, and that makes up for a lot of things. They've got, Marcus Bontempelli is still out, but they've figured out a way to compensate for some of these things. And this is a very good quality football team, and I think as they get healthy, they're going to continue to compete. They're going to, So this is why, if you've not watched my ladder prediction episode from earlier in the year, I strongly encourage you to go back to it, because I did technically 3 ladder predictions. I did the real one, which was the one in the middle, but then I did a random one at the beginning, and I put in the one I did as a practice one at the end, where I literally pulled little wooden balls and wooden blocks out with the ladder positions and the team names on it, because I don't have a clue how this ladder is going to look this year. I gave you my top 8. I told you I thought it was going to win the wooden spoon this year. But I think none of us really know what's going to happen. Although I think we could probably say that Richmond and West Coast are going to probably be down at 17 and 18. They may play leapfrog with one another this year. But beyond that, other than saying it's a good possibility that Brisbane and GWS are likely to be playing finals, is there anybody else that we can say definitively are going to be in the 8? Even the clubs that are playing well right now, can we say definitively that Gold Coast or Adelaide are going to be there? I think we'd like to, but I don't think we can actually say that for sure with any degree of certainty. These are clubs that have all the capabilities of playing finals, but they've still got to prove it to themselves, and they got to prove it to others as well. So this is a wide open fixture this year, and it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun to watch. And when Club A beats Club B one week, Club C may beat Club A the next week, and then Club B may beat Club C the following week. And that's what's going to make this season great, because there's no guaranteeing that that anybody's going to run the table. Not even Brisbane, okay? Brisbane's not going to run the table. I don't think that we're going to be seeing anybody. GWS is not going to run the table. The Cats certainly aren't going to run the table. They jammed their big toe into the table leg the last 2 weeks to take nothing away from Brisbane and St. Kilda. So there's my tips for this week, folks. Oh, you know what? I didn't even tell you about the damn game with Fremantle now, did I? Yeah, I went on such a tangent about the Bulldogs there. Fremantle, they finally got a win this past week. Again, this is a club that I have playing in the grand final this year. I tipped them to be playing the Cats in the grand final. They got to start playing a heck of a lot better. They've got all the potential in the world. They're one of the best. To me, on paper, they're one of the best clubs on the side. But again, they got to get on the ground and have success. okay? I think that, Fremantle, if this was being played at Marvel, I would probably go with the Bulldogs to win it. But since it's that cross-country trip, some Canadian geese flying by off in the distance there, you might be able to hear them honking at us. They are a nuisance. I'd love to see a tariff on Canadian geese because all they do is come around here and poop on things. Okay, that's the only political spot you're going to get from me. I'm kidding about that, though. But there's a lot of them, and they're just really big birds, and they just, like I said, they poop on everything. And they'll chase you if they don't like you. So, back to this last game here, okay? I am going to go with the Dockers to win this one by only 4 points at home. I think it's going to be a very close game. I think that they're going to kick the winning goal inside the last minute. Okay, Luke Jackson's going to put that last goal through the sticks in the last minute of the game to get Fremantle a win and get them back to level. And the Bulldogs will go home saying, okay, we almost had this one. We can probably come back and get it next time. So there are my tips for round 4. You'll have to let me know where I'm wrong. Okay, and I'm probably wrong on a bunch of them. I get a lot of them wrong. And again, if you're wagering based upon my tips, stop. I don't know what I'm talking about, okay? This is purely for entertainment purposes only. Don't place a wager on anything that I have to tell you or anything that I say here, okay? Unless you want to wager on how cold it's going to be here tomorrow, because I think tomorrow it's going to be back up to about 9 Celsius. So maybe I'll forego the hat tomorrow. Okay, I do need to shave a little bit. My hair is getting a little scruffy. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. There's episode 384 of A Yank on the Footy. I do hope you'll check in on your friends and family. Make sure that they're okay. If you need to speak to somebody, don't hesitate to reach out to them. Okay, if you need to talk to someone, the world is a much better place with you in it. Get out and take that walk. Get a refreshing walk in. I'm getting in. I'm not converting it in my head right now, but I'm getting in. Let's see here. I'm getting in about 12 kilometers a day over the last month. Not bad for somebody who's almost 62 years old, and really enjoying it. And it's kind of cathartic. It lets me get out and think. I listen to a lot of podcasts while I'm out doing that as well. But again, check up on your friends, okay? Reach out to them. Go out and have that coffee. You'll have to go somewhere besides Bunnings to get a pitchfork because, as Cindy told us, they're all sold out. I do wish you well. I hope your club plays well this week. I hope your fantasy team does well, unless you're playing against mine. And folks, I hope you'll subscribe to the podcast. Head over to my website, ayankonthefooty.com, and get on the mailing list there. Also over on YouTube, I'm trying to get up to 500 subscribers on there. I'm at about 255 right now, so I need to just about double that before I hit that 500 subscribers. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, hit that and hit that notification button so when new episodes come out, you get those in your inbox. And I don't have episode 383 up on YouTube as of yet, but I sat down last weekend with a gentleman out of Orroroo in South Australia, and just an absolutely fascinating man. He's a bard. He's a longtime Geelong supporter from Northern Victoria, and just a great storyteller. I hope you'll check it out. I am going to get it up on YouTube. I just have not had the opportunity to edit that as of yet. But ladies and gentlemen, as always, may your dribble kick never hit the post. I will catch you later. And this has been episode 384. And give me a follow on my socials as well over at Yank_on on X, a Yank on the Footy podcast on Facebook, a Yank on the Footy on Instagram as well. You can find me, Craig Wessels, on LinkedIn. And have a great day, ladies and gents. And until next time, cheers.